But, we know President Trump, on September 12, 2018, issued an executive order. I've spoken about this at length before. And that was about foreign interference in the election. He set the table. And as I mentioned, there were a number of patriotic witnesses that stepped forward. One I want to introduce you to, if you haven't heard about him already, Colonel Waldron. He was a information warfare officer. Rudy Giuliani presented him as a witness in Arizona, and he was also a witness in Michigan. Colonel Waldron confirms the U.S. has a copy of election night data traffic and packets sent overseas to Frankfurt. The U.S. has a copy of the traffic and the packets of information that were sent to Germany on election night. The first expert at the Arizona State Legislature hearing with Rudy Giuliani was U.S. cybersecurity expert Colonel Phil Waldron. Colonel Phil Waldron spoke first at the Arizona hearing and then in the Michigan hearing about the voting machines used in the U.S. elections. These are the same machines used in Venezuela by Chavez. The Dominion systems were connected to the internet as well. And remember what we've always said and what General McInerney said. And what we had said for weeks before. Any machines connected to the internet can be hacked. Hammer. And once they're hacked, the results can be changed. Scorecard. Votes added, votes subtracted, votes deleted, votes changed. Votes gone missing. Colonel Waldron claimed that not only did the military's white hat hackers see the data flowing overseas to Germany on election night, they also have a copy of the traffic and the packets of data that were sent. Interesting. This guy Krebs, who ran CISA, a division of the Department of Homeland Security, who stated after the election, oh, it was a secure election. It was perfect. No problems. This Craig guy is a deep state swamp rat. We've identified him before. We called for his ouster before it actually happened. He's now gone. But this Krebs guy was there as a choke point. We've talked about choke points for years. The deep state puts choke points in different government agencies to choke off information so that the truth doesn't come out. He was a choke point. In fact, Patrick Byrne, in my interview with him, that's still on YouTube, the one the president retweeted, stated that they had set up a meeting with this Krebs and his team. It was all set up. Patrick Byrne and his team flew to Washington. They walk in a room and they sat there, and Krebs and his staff never showed up. They tried calling him. They never returned their calls. They continued to try. They never returned their calls. He was the choke point. And he's gone. Several of his staff are also gone. But Krebs was there to say, quote, it's the most secure election in history, end quote. Rudy Giuliani asked Colonel Waldron in Arizona, was Dominion on his council? In fact, it came out that this Krebs character had a council of advisors. And who sat on it? Oh, the voting machine companies, the software companies, the ones that were easily hacked, the ones that had left a bat door, a key underneath the doormat for Hammer to get in and use Scorecard. Was Dominion on his council? Waldron, yes. On Dominion pointed to as being secure because it doesn't connect to the internet, Colonel Phil Waldron, quote, these machines have many access points to the internet. These machines are connected to the internet. Dominion user manuals, in fact, instruct how to connect to the internet. And the server traffic showed connections to the internet. And one of these pontificating bureaucrats asked, well, are you willing to say under oath that you've seen the connection to the internet, that you've seen it gone offshore to Frankfurt, Germany? Colonel Waldron, quote, yes, our white hat hackers, they have that traffic and the packets. Yeah, they sure do. In addition to Colonel Waldron and his team, Patrick Byrne and his team, Sidney Powell has talked about the Kraken and releasing the Kraken, or releasing the information associated with the Kraken. There was a tweet that was retweeted actually by Lynn Wood, fantastic attorney, Sidney Powell, President Trump on November 24th. They retweeted The Kraken is a Department of Defense cyber warfare program. It involves the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion. From the article, Marshall Report, who knew it? The Kraken was a Department of Defense cyber warfare program. It tracks systems and acquires evidence of nefarious activities and crimes committed by the deep state. The Kraken is a Department of Defense-run cyber warfare program that tracks and hacks various other systems to acquire evidence of nefarious actions by the deep state. We had a lot of eyes on the prize that night. I think a lot of that stemmed from, well, President Trump being wise to what they were going to be up to and what they had been up to. That's why he issued an executive order on September 12, 2018. To those who say, well, we wonder whether, in fact, this is in fact true, that this has been documented. General McInerney on my radio show this past Sunday documented the fact that all of his sources have confirmed that there was a raid in Frankfurt, Germany. And the servers were there that were used in this election heist. They were under the banner of a company out of Barcelona, Spain, Citel, that had this presence in Frankfurt. But it appears that the people manning the operation, running the operation, were from our own Central Intelligence Agency. We've talked about their involvement before. I take you back to March of 2017. WikiLeaks put out a report. WikiLeaks has never been found to be wrong. Ever. Here's what they put out on March 8th, 2017. In addition to its headquarters in Langley, Virginia, the United States' CIA also uses the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt, Germany, as a covert base for its hackers covering Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Apparently, they've added to that now the United States. Quote, from WikiLeaks, quote, CIA hackers operating out of the Frankfurt Consulate Center for Cyber Intelligence Europe, or CCIE, are given diplomatic black passports and State Department cover. The instructions for incoming CIA hackers make Germany's counterintelligence efforts appear inconsequential, said WikiLeaks. They issued this when they also issued Vault 7, which are the CIA hacking tools, one of which they documented was Hammer. I've said before that November 25th, 2020 is the modern-day equivalent of the date George Washington crossed the Delaware to take on the Hessians in the Battle of Trenton, which was a turning point in the Revolutionary War. That occurred on December 25th, 1776. The modern-day equivalent is November 25th, 2020. Why? As I've outlined before, it is the day people will look back in years and decades to come as the turning point in our war against the deep state. On that day, freedom was the victor across the board. General Flynn, the people's general, an innocent man, was issued a pardon of innocence, More on that in our interview. Please watch it. It's on the YouTube channel. And if you don't like it there, go to our homepage, davejanda.com. We also put it there. Sidney Powell dropped legal Moab's mother of all bombs on Georgia and Michigan, which will destroy the election fraud perpetrated by the deep state. Attorney Lynn Wood won a victory in the 11th Circuit, which at that point will lead to a dissection of the legitimacy of the Georgia vote. The devastating testimony on that day occurred in the Pennsylvania State Senate on the vote fraud operation in Pennsylvania, which was run by Rudy Giuliani. And the Supreme Court stuffed Andrew Cuomo on religious freedom. Many people believe, the media's already declared Joe Biden the president-elect. Read the Constitution. Where does it say the media coronates anyone? It doesn't. I'll make it easy for you. It doesn't. This is all a psyops. It's all a fraud. It's all a scam. Look, many people say, you can't undo it. Really? Remember, let's go to sports. Lance Armstrong, multiple winner of the Tour de France. Multiple. He was declared the winner of the Tour de France for a number of years. Until they found out he cheated. And he was no longer the winner. You're going to hear a lot about the words chain of custody. You're going to hear a little bit more about it in a little bit in this presentation. It's an important concept. The chain of custody of when somebody goes in the voting booth and how that vote gets recorded in the Secretary of State's office in their respective state. The chain of custody is essentially non-existent in all of these swing battleground states where this fraud was perpetrated. And frankly, I believe the chain of custody, probably in every state, has been in some way co-opted. Easier to cheat that way. In Sydney's legal Moabs that she filed in Georgia and Michigan, she presented a statement of another patriot, courageous patriot, by the name of Dr. Naveed Naya. The statement was presented under oath and under penalty of perjury. And the statement centered on the dissection of the election fraud via cyber warfare. Dr. Naya is one of the leading experts in the world in cyber security, cyber assessment, data analysis, security counterintelligence, and cyber warfare. And if you don't believe me, how about General Flynn, former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency? We spoke about Dr. Naya in our interview. And I believe it's important for me to go through his conclusions, Dr. Naya, because I did that with General Flynn in his interview. And he completely concurred, agreed with, supported all of these conclusions that Dr. Naya stated in his sworn affidavit under penalty of perjury as it relates to the election fraud that was perpetrated by the deep state against every American citizen. Dr. Naya's background, multiple degrees, BAs, Bachelor of Arts, Masters, several PhDs in various areas including electrical and computer engineering. He had advanced training at the Defense Intelligence Agency, Central Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency, Department of Homeland Security, Office of Intelligence and Analysis, as well as MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. 35 years experience performing technical assessment, mathematical modeling, cyber attack pattern analysis, and security intelligence. Here's what he concluded. Now, even the deep state's own New York Times several years ago wrote about him and said that whatever room he's in, Naya is the smartest guy in the room. It'll be interesting to see how they try to slander, libel, misrepresent him in the days and weeks and months to come. We know what they do. That's how they do it. Here are his conclusions. Dominion, ES&S, Sitel, Smartmatic, all the voting machine companies, are vulnerable to fraud and vote manipulation. Dominion has been used in other countries to forge election results. Hammer and Scorecard, General McInerney spoke about what we actually first started speaking about Hammer, about its illegal surveillance capabilities and its hacking capabilities on March 19, 2017, with General McInerney with the support of Admiral Ace Lyons. We were denigrated for that information we brought forward by deep state hacks and tools and puppets. But in fact, it was true. Hammer and Scorecard are real, he states, Dr. Naya, under oath, under penalty of perjury, not a hoax, and both are used to manipulate the election outcomes. Dominion's corporate structure is deliberately confusing to hide relationships with Venezuela, China, and Cuba. Dominion machines are easily hackable. Dominion memory cards with cryptographic keys access the systems and were stolen in 2019. The counts in the disputed states Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia show electronic manipulation. The simultaneous decision in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, and also in Michigan, by the way, to pretend to halt counting votes was unprecedented and demonstrated a coordinated effort to collude toward desired results. 1 or 2% of the votes were forged or in Biden's favor. Optical scanners were set to accept unverified, unvalidated ballots. The scanners failed to keep records for audits, an outcome that must have been deliberately programmed. The stolen cryptographic key, which applied to all voting systems, was used to alter vote counts. The favorable votes pouring in after hours for Biden could not be accounted for by the Democrat preference for mailed-in ballots. They demonstrated manipulation. For example, in Pennsylvania, it was physically impossible to feed 400,000 ballots into the machines within the 2 to 3 hour time period they supposedly done that. Dominion used Chinese parts, and there's reason to believe that China, Venezuela, Cuba interfered in the election as well. There was a hammer scorecard cyber attack that altered votes in the battleground states and then forwarded the results to Citel servers in Frankfurt, Germany, to avoid detection. The systems failed to produce any auditable results. Based on the above findings, Dr. Naya concluded, quote, with high confidence that the election 2020 data were altered in all battleground states, resulting in hundreds of thousands of votes that were cast for President Trump to be transferred to Vice President Biden. And he signed that under penalty of perjury. And then this recent information came out. Remember, we talked about the chain of custody of votes, the documentation of when someone goes in a voting booth and how that vote is not altered when it gets to the Secretary of State's office. DeKalb County in Georgia, large county, cannot find the chain of custody records for every absentee ballot or any absentee ballot. They're lost. Yeah, right. From Voter Georgia group dissecting the election in Georgia itself, Dominion system flips Georgia Trump votes to Biden. Oh, wait a minute. I thought that was just a little glitch kind of thing in Michigan. No, it's a recurrent theme. Voter Georgia announced it has confirmed the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5 system used throughout Georgia flipped dozens of votes cast in at least one county for President Donald Trump to former Vice President Joe Biden during the November 3rd, 2020 election. Dominion vote flipping from Trump to Biden was previously believed to have occurred just in Antrim County in Michigan, but apparently not. In Georgia, Ware County elections director confirmed that the recently completed hand count and totals showed that the total electronic vote count shorted Donald Trump by 0.52% of the votes cast. Shorted him and added him to Biden. Biden's margin of victory in the state was 0.26%. And this was shaving votes by 0.52% just in that one county. It's believed that that occurred throughout the state, throughout our country, and in fact was able to be dialed based through the hammer scorecard system into the desired result they needed. Those machines are now being forensically analyzed. There was a CPA by the name of Rob Hurst. This was also retweeted by Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, Congressman Jody Heiss. And the conclusion was that, quote, the use of illegal and or fabricated ballots is an additional issue altogether than this one, but this issue with these voting machines is sufficient evidence to question the validity of the entire election of the 28 states that use Dominion software. Huh. Which brings me to analysis done by Edward Solomon in Georgia. Breaking, this from Joe Hoft. Expert identifies 200,000 votes hijacked from Trump to Biden in Georgia at the precinct level. We did an interview with Phil Evans, one of the top data election analysts in the country, if not world. It's on our subscription platform. He spoke about the fraction magic of voting. For example, when votes are reported, they're being reported as Donald Trump had 1,253,45 votes. How do you get 0.45? Joe Biden had 1,253,125.86 votes. Well, how do you get 0.8? What? How can you have fractional votes? Only one way. You have an algorithm through Scorecard that's introduced into the system that's flipping votes by fractionating them. Fraction magic. It's how algorithms work. Data expert Edward Solomon analyzed the 2020 election results in Georgia and identified another pattern in the data showing ultimately 200,000 votes transferred from President Trump to Joe Biden at the precinct level. And that's before they were sent overseas and had a little funny business also done. So people say, well, how did it go? President Trump was 700,000 votes ahead at night in Pennsylvania, ended up losing. Or 300,000 right here in Michigan. Or 120,000 in Wisconsin. Or 100 and some thousand in Georgia. How did fraction magic. Hammer, scorecard. Algorithms. Voting machines that had a back door in them already created. And now we know that Dominion has wonderful, I say that facetiously, ties to China. That apparently China invested $400 million through an investment arm of UBS with ties to other companies that somehow was involved in the purchase of Dominion voting systems. Wow. So why are all these politicians that are supposed Republicans not stepping up? How about this? This is not the first time this was used. I believe it's been used for many years. I have seen hard evidence. Remember, my training is as an analytical chemist, okay? I reviewed data from 2016 in the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders campaigns. The election results at a minimum in New York and California were changed just the same way to give Hillary Clinton the win over Bernie Sanders. The election was stolen from Bernie Sanders in 2016 by Hillary Clinton using hammer, scorecard, fraction magic. Fact. I've seen the data. I've reviewed the data. The data is also in the hands of much higher power individuals than this little old country doctor. I believe that same approach, criminal approach, was used for Joe Biden to win the primary in 2020 over Bernie Sanders. And I believe many of these politicians aren't stepping up because they're starting to think, you know what? How did I win? Was there some funny business there? Or maybe they even know. Maybe they have a financial relationship with Dominion. Maybe they paid money to Dominion for them to kind of juice the numbers. Maybe there was a kickback scheme going on with Dominion. This has been brought up, that there are issues in Georgia. There's people brought up the issues here in potential Michigan with these huge contracts going to Dominion. Every state that has them, 28 states? It all needs to be investigated. And it won't be swept underneath the rug. Why do I feel that way? Because of you. And millions of us that are patriots. Go back to Melissa Carone and her statement. Patriots are stepping up. Not just by the dozens or hundreds or thousands, but by the millions. We're stepping up. that commercial from Wendy's in the past, show me the beef, right? Well, what all of us are saying is, okay, Basement Joe, Deep State, show us the 80 million votes. Come on, bring them. Come on. The burden of proof is not with Trump. The burden of proof should be with Biden. Show us the votes. And you know what? They can't. Which is why they're trying to do this smoke and mirrors, dog and pony show, goat rodeo of, oh, here's who I'm appointing in my cabinet. Buddy, you don't have a cabinet. Well, maybe you have a medicine cabinet, but you surely don't have a cabinet that's going to sit in the White House. I believe that the next couple weeks are going to be very, very interesting, with a tremendous amount of information produced, that the bought-off lamestream fake media will, kicking and dragging, will present just a fraction of it, but it'll be enough of a fraction where even the most brain-dead of zealots gets it. I thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll become part of our freedom family. Join us at DaveJanda.com. A tremendous amount of free information there. There's the General Flynn interview up there, the interview with General McInerney. We have a couple clips with Sidney Powell, some of the presentation she's given, all there. And we hope you'll become part of our freedom family and become a subscriber to DaveJanda.com. I believe it's the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet. You will not be sorry. It will put you light years ahead of the curve on this information highway. I thank you for your time. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail.